Yo, yo. So let's talk about Monarch, Legacy of Monsters, Season 2, Episode 7. Now, I personally kind of liked it, even though we, once again, didn't get any damn monsters in a monster show. I still rather enjoyed it. So let's start off with Shaw talking to his younger self, Kurt and Wyatt Russell. So personally, I'm not a huge fan of time travel stories. Like, here comes a pitchfork and torches, but I didn't really like Back to the Future very much personally. But I am kind of enjoying this whole Shaw paradox thing. So Shaw goes to contact Godzilla to fight off the newest monster, Titan X. But instead of finding Godzilla, he goes and finds his younger self when he was trapped in the Axis Mundi. Because you had let's call him younger Shaw and older Shaw. You had younger Shaw talking to his older self, but he thought that his older Shaw was Command Force from his timeline, right? And so, meanwhile, Kurt Russell, the older Shaw, is pretending to be a commander from his time while also trying to like ease his mind. Like he's talking to himself so he knows the kind of panic and what's running through his younger self's mind. So he's trying to manage that while also trying to get the mission complete by contacting Godzilla and getting him to fight Monster X. And I thought it was pretty cool. And but I was still kind of sitting there wondering why he didn't even recognize that that might have been him, because he's bound to like pick up some sort of note about that, right? And then he goes and finds out that he's not talking to Commander, he's talking to himself. He even goes off and says, "Oh my god, you do sound like me." Meaning, like, he caught on that he was talking to his older self. And he ends up in finding Kiko, who was, like, surviving on her own. And so younger Shaw ends up finding Keiko surviving on her own, like we saw in season 1. And he goes and sees this as an opportunity to kind of, like, save the love of his life. Like this is an opportunity, a golden opportunity to make a difference, right? Only this is where the butterfly effect really comes into play because younger Shaw doesn't realize that Keiko later gets out of Access Mundi and ends up living, uh, I guess you would call it a happy life with her granddaughters and seeing her older son and all that. Even though her going to a different timeline kind of traumatized her as well. But so older Shaw is trying to convince him not to do it because this is where the butterfly effect kicks in. If he goes and saves her, they might have an entirely different outcome. But they don't explicitly state that it's going to be a negative outcome. It could very well have been a more positive outcome. But they didn't know. They were ignorant to it. Who knows what would happen, right? So older Shaw is trying to convince his younger self to go the safe route and like tell him I know for sure that this route will get her home. And so younger Shaw is faced with this big old dilemma on whether to save her and not to save her, and well, you can probably guess what he chose to do to keep the story going. And then by the end of that whole shenanigans, Shaw goes and faces a mission that would have happened, that would apparently happen no matter what the result of his current mission would have been. And we got to see a very sad and solemn goodbye to an old friend of his from season 1. And I was a little saddened by that because he was like just getting ready to go on to his next adventure with Shaw, and then Shaw just suddenly drops the bombshell. Yeah, you're not coming. And then it leaves on the big old cliffhanger that he might not survive this next mission, whatever it may be. So next week, I'm kind of excited to see where that mission leads. And it will look like we're also going to actually get Godzilla monster battle next week as well. Now, jumping into Kate's story, she sorta did something else besides cry, like she's been doing throughout the entire season. Like her character is kind of pointless. All she's been doing is crying the entire season. But now she's finally gone and done something. She's getting like visions and sounds, kind of like how that little girl did with King Kong, Godzilla versus Kong. Oh, I can't remember her name right now. I feel very bad about it. But you know who I'm talking about. She's experiencing very similar things. So could she also be part Iwi? I mean, she's like making the same exact symptoms as the little girl did, you know? And so she finally goes and does something, and it's in a very similar situation Keiko was in, where she fell into Axis Mundi. So she's trying to use that trauma to change the course and not have Kate do the same mistakes she did. Only Kate came out with some pretty nice little logic saying that going in there wasn't a mistake, that she had to do it regardless of the risks. But the way she put it was just kind of like thought provoking, you know? Apex has also revealed their evil plan, a plan nobody saw coming. It wasn't totally predictable at all. They want to eradicate the monsters. Like, yeah, we kind of saw that one coming a mile away. Thank you, Godzilla vs. Kong. So there's not really much to talk about on that one. I mean, we all knew what their idea was at the very beginning, right? Apex equals bad guy. You know, the good old classic formula. So yeah, like many other fans watching this show, I am disappointed that we didn't get to see monster battles. But we did get to see a pretty captivating little story on this episode. And if you think about it, even in the classic Godzilla movies, Godzilla only showed up towards the beginning and the end of the movies for the most part. Every now and then, like Final Wars, he would have more parts. But for the most part, he was kind of just there at the beginning and the end. So there's really anything new there. We can't have monsters on the screen 24/7, you know? That's kind of asking a bit much.